Say later on, Abraham the believer. Okay? And that's our connection to Abraham. Now, I have a physical connection to Abraham, but we all have a spiritual connection to Abraham. Mm-hmm. Abraham the believer. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll see that in Scripture. But really, Abrahamic covenant is the foundation, and then we'll see that it is amplified through 3 additional covenants that really play out the land, the seed, and the spirit and the blessing. So why don't we go to Deuteronomy chapter 29, and we'll see about the land covenant. Earlier it had been called the Palestinian covenant by some earlier folks. But you know how like the rainbow's been corrupted, right? You know, now the rainbow has a different meaning, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the same thing happened with Palestinian and Palestine. So
Yeah.
we call it the land covenant.
Where in Deuteronomy?
Chapter 29 of Deuteronomy. I'm going to read the first verse because I want you to realize this is a different covenant than the Mosaic covenant. Okay? He's not expounding upon the Mosaic covenant here. He's actually giving them a different covenant. These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commands Moses to make with the sons of Israel in the land of Moab. Besides the covenant which he made with them at Horeb. Okay? So this is not the covenant he made with them at Horeb, which is the Mosaic covenant. This is besides. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "You have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and all his servants, the great trials which your eyes have seen, those great signs and wonders. Yet to this day the Lord has not given you a heart to know, nor ears to see, nor eyes to see, nor ears to hear. I led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes have not worn out on you, and your sandal has not worn out on your foot. You have not eaten bread, no, you have drunk wine or strong drink, in order that you might know that I am the Lord your God. When you reach this place, Shinon the king of Heshbon and Og the king of Bashan came out to meet us for battle, but we defeated them. And we took their land and gave it as an inheritance to the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of the Massonites. So keep the word of this covenant to do them, that you may prosper in all that you do. You stand today, all of you, before the Lord your God, your chiefs, your tribes, your elders, and your officers, even the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the alien who is with you in your camps." So they were non-Jews within them, the ones that came out of Egypt. If you go and you read, they were Egyptians that came out with the Israelites. From the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water, that you may enter into the covenant with the Lord your God and into his oath which the Lord your God is making with you today, in order that he may establish you today as his people, and that he may be your God, just as he spoke to you, as he swore to your father, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You see, he's going back to the original covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "Not with you alone I am making this covenant and this oath, but with those who stand here with us today in the presence of the Lord our God, and with those who are not with us here today. For you know how we lived in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the midst of the nations through which you passed. Moreover, you have seen their abominations and their idols of wood, stone, silver, and gold, which they had with them, so that there will not be among you a man or woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away today from the Lord your God to go and serve the gods of those nations, that there will not be among you a root bearing poisonous fruit and woodworm. It shall be when he hears the words of this curse that he will boast, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart in order to destroy the watered land with the dry. The Lord shall never be willing to forgive him, but rather the anger of the Lord and his jealousy will burn against the man, and every curse which is written in the book which will rest on him, and the Lord will blot out his name from under heaven. And the Lord will single him out for adversity from all the tribes of Israel, according to the curses of the covenant which are written in the book of the law. Now the generation to come, your sons who rise up after you, and the foreigners who came from a distant land, when they see the plagues of the land and the diseases which the Lord has afflicted on it, will say, All the land is brimstone and salt, a burning waste, unsown and unproductive, and no grass grows in it. Like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. All the nations will say, why has the Lord done this to this land? Why this great outburst of anger? The men will say, because they forsook the covenant of the Lord, the God of their fathers, which they made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. So there's going to be a time in the future when they're going to forsake the covenant, the Mosaic covenant, and God's going to bring desolation upon the land. They went and served other gods, idolatry. So they broke the covenant and they served idolatry, and they worshipped them, gods whom they did not know and whom he had not allotted to them. Therefore the anger of the Lord burned against that land to bring it upon every curse which is written in this book. And the Lord uprooted them from their land in anger and in fury and in great wrath, and cast them into another land as it is in this day. I wanted to read all that because that really gets to that little set of bubbles I have on there, where if they were going to go into idolatry and they were going to break the law, he was going to take them out of the land that he gave them. Let's move on to chapter 30. Let's go to verse 3. Then the Lord your God will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, will gather you again from all the peoples where the Lord your God had scattered you. If your outcasts are at the ends of the earth, from there the Lord will gather you, and from there he will bring you back. The Lord your God will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. So again, we're saying he's going to give them the land. Okay, so there's the land covenant to that. But remember, if they're not, what's going to happen to them if they're in idolatry? They're going to be out of the land. Even though it's their land, they're not going to be there. So that's the land covenant. Now the next one is the seed or the Davidic covenant. And let's turn to 2 Samuel. Second Samuel 7. Second Samuel 7, verse 11. Even from the day that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. The Lord also declares to you that the Lord will make a house for you. Okay? So he's going to give David a house. When your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you who will come forth from you, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. I mean, we read these now, we're looking back, wow. But when he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of men and the strokes of the Son of Men. But my loving kindness shall not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I removed from before you. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne will be established forever. Okay? And in accordance with all this, these words are the vision so that Nathan spoke to David. So this is he's talking about things that are going to be forever, eternal, okay? And then we're going to jump now, and we'll come back to these, but I want to get through the scriptures, and then we'll come back and do a little bit more expanding on this. Let's look at the new covenant, which is the third aspect of the Abrahamic covenant, the blessing, in Jeremiah 31:31. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and with the seed of beast. excuse me, move down. I'm started too early. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not like the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So it's not going to be like which covenant? The Mosaic covenant. My covenant which they broke. Although I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. But this is the covenant which I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and on their hearts I will write it. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they will not teach again each man his neighbor, and each man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and their sins I will remember no more. So who is this covenant made with?
Israel.
Israel. And we'll talk about some of the provisions in there that have not, this has not been fulfilled. Okay? Now, I mentioned that we talked about the land, the seed, and the blessing that's talking about. There are physical blessings in the millennial kingdom, but there's also the spiritual aspect to it. You want to turn to Galatians. And you're going to see why we read Genesis chapter 15. Even so, Galatians 3, 6-8. Even so, Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. Therefore, be sure that it is those who are of faith who are the sons of Abraham. The scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, All the nations will be blessed in you. Let's read verse 9, because I was talking about this. So then, those who are of faith are blessed with Abraham the believer. We're with Abraham. But you see here the idea that the spiritual blessing in the Abrahamic covenant for the Gentiles. Okay? Now, let's get back to the Davidic covenant and talk about some issues here. The real issue with the Davidic covenant, when we get into these different interpretive schemes, is Christ's reign spiritual or literal? Okay? Is he going to literally reign from Jerusalem? Or is Jerusalem really talking about heaven? And then the timing of the fulfillment. Is he currently sitting on David's throne? Or, so these are the issues. And again, the more you take it literally, the more you end up with where we come out on this. And so we'll see that. And we don't need to read all this. We're talking about covenant theologians and amillennialism. They see Christ's present reign at God's right hand as the fulfillment of the Davidic covenant. They see Jerusalem above as the location of this kingdom. In essence, covenant theology sees a spiritual fulfillment of the Davidic covenant with Jesus ruling over the church from heaven above. Okay, that's how they take those scriptures. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but we looked at Zechariah 14. We didn't look at these particular two verses. But they state that the Messiah's feet are going to touch down on the Mount of Olives at his second coming, and he'll be king over all the earth. How does that jive with his reign being from heaven? Again, Jeremiah 23, that the righteous branch of David will execute judgment and justice in the earth. I mean, in heaven, I think we have. Israel will dwell safely and will dwell in their own land. Again, if we take these things literally, then Christ can't be sitting on David's throne. Daniel 7 uses the expression under the whole heaven to describe the Messiah's kingdom. The prophets foretold dramatic changes which are earthly in nature. No diseases, a lot of abundant